Today's recipe is a Thai green curry. The main focus of today's recipe will be the handling of raw meat, and we will be looking at how we prevent cross-contamination, what cross-contamination is, and how else we can avoid cross-contamination when we're working in a kitchen to prevent food poisoning. So, ingredients for the Thai green curry: in a chicken Thai green curry. Obviously you could do prawns, you could do pork, you could do tofu or corn as well. We've got coconut milk, Thai green curry paste, which at the moment seems to be in demand. Managed to get an individual portion, but you can get the larger jars, and it doesn't have to be a Thai green paste. You could use red paste or a yellow paste as well. I've got some sugar snap peas, green pepper, rice, spring onions and some coriander for seasoning at the end. Equipment wise, I'm using a green chopping board and I have got a red chopping board as well, which I'll explain in a few minutes. I've got two different knives, and then I've got my spatula and my spoon, and I've got a teaspoon just for getting the curry paste out, as well as oil, frying pan and a larger pan, saucepan just for doing the rice. I'm just going to move my files out of the way. So the first thing that we're going to do, when we are dealing with raw meat, we try where we can to prepare all of the other ingredients, the lower risk ingredients first. So normally our fruit and our vegetables, those sorts of ingredients. They may need washing to remove soil, obviously that carries bacteria as well. But when we're cooking them, obviously that bacteria is lower level and it can be destroyed with heat. The same goes for the chicken. That can also, the bacteria will be destroyed with heat, but we don't want to be cross-contaminating. And cross-contamination is the movement of bacteria from one item to another. Whether that item is your hands, whether it's your equipment, whether is it physically your chicken touching something else, which obviously it could happen in a fridge if you don't store your raw meat at the bottom of the fridge in a steel container or steel packaging away from other things, that if you're putting it up high, the drips can come down onto any other items in your fridge. So if you either have a meat drawer or bottom of your fridge should be where your raw meat and raw fish as well is stored. That will prevent cross-contamination, so prevent that bacteria going from one item to another that might not necessarily be cooked. Then that bacteria is on there, can start to multiply, and that can lead to food poisoning. So biggest thing is obviously washing your hands, washing your equipment, using different equipment where you can, but also consider the storage of your foods as well. So we will come back to the chicken and use of the red chopping board when we're at that stage. We're going to use the green chopping board now, and we are going to get some of our vegetables prepared. So we're using spring onions today as an alternative to the normal white onion. So we're just going to peel the outer layer back like we did in year 7 with the pizza toast. Top and tail, so where it goes hollow, you're going to chop off. I'm going to chop the root off. And then, just for aesthetic reasons, we're going to cut this on a diagonal. So we're going to go down the onion as a slice all the way along. Then, once we have done that, we're going to do all the onions. We're going to do the pepper, and we're going to do the pepper into large chunks, and we're going to also do the mange tout or sugar snap peas in this case, and we're just going to cut those just in half again on a diagonal. So what I'll do now is I'm going to put them on close up and just show you in detail how to cut those 3 before we then move on to preparing the chicken and putting the rice on as well. So onions, as I said, are going to go onto a diagonal like so. Give them a little bit more of an appearance in the dish. So, as I said, take away the outer layer of the onion, peel that away. It's not got a very good one. Let's peel that back. And then once we've peeled back that onion, we can remove that outer layer that's been in contact with the soil. Take the root off. Feel where it goes hollow. Cut that away as well. And then I'm going to use claw grip and go on an angle to cut the rest of that onion, so it's on a nice diagonal there. As I said, mange tout or sugar snap peas, we're just going to cut them in half, but again, just on an angle. The presentation of that compared with that just gives a little bit more interest. So it's just about thinking about your presentation all of the time. So we're going to go through and obviously cut all of those in half. If you find any where they are particularly dry on the ends, you can also just nip those off, just claw grip again, just cutting through those, but cutting them in half. And then pepper, using bridge hold, and we're going to cut through the centre, all the way through, turn the knife around rather than try and cut through the whole thing at once. Like so, hand in to pull that root out. And it does remove most of the seeds without you having to then try and re-cut them out. Then, going to cut it in quite chunky, big slices using claw grip, before then tilting it on its side and again cutting it into nice big chunks of pepper. So it's similar kind of sizes to the sugar snap peas. So going through with all of those. So if you do that with all your vegetables to start with, the only other thing that we need to do anything with is the coriander. And the coriander is slightly different. We're going to do something called a chiffonade with the coriander. And that just means that the coriander leaf will be shredded. So you get a few of the pieces of coriander, or you can do parsley, dill. This is just a common way to prepare quite a lot of herbs and also things like spinach or lettuce leaves. So you get them into a large piece like that. You can then roll them and then pop claw grip and just shred through them. And it just means that you get nice small pieces of the herbs, but then you can kind of discard the stalks at the end. They're not needed. Next I'm going to prepare the chicken. So we're going to use a red board, and that red colour is chosen to represent blood. So it makes you think about the raw meat. So a lot of steak, mince, things like that. When you do get them raw, you can see that the liquid that is still coming out of them, there is small amounts of blood. So it's just a reminder for you. So always think about the colour of blood when you're thinking about raw foods. And what I have as well is I've got a knife with a little red dot on it, so that I can use that for my meat to remind me not to then go back and use vegetables. So with the chicken, I'm using chicken breast, chicken thighs also fine. Try and get boneless if you can, just because there's quite a lot of faffing around involved. And then if you've got any little white tendon parts on it, you can just trim that. Now with chicken, you have to use a sawing action, and it is better to either use a very, very sharp knife, or if you've not got a very sharp knife, try and use a serrated knife, just so that it cuts through. But you have got to use that sawing action because it's the texture of the chicken, it's quite stringy. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut them into thin slices or dice into cubes, because obviously a curry, you don't want to then be using a knife to cut the chicken up, you want them in bite-sized pieces. So claw grip, and we're just going to cut through each piece of the chicken. So I'm using 2 chicken breasts, equivalent would be 3 or 4 chicken thighs that you would want to use in there. Obviously with corn, for the same kind of portion, about 300 grams of corn. Similar if you wanted to do Thai green prawn curry, do the same with that as well. So each of my slices that I've got like this now, I'm just cutting in half, and we're going to leave the chicken like so. So I've got another one just to do, and then I'm going to show you how to put the rice on, and we're going to construct that once all my chicken is prepared. Now that the chicken is all cut up and ready, we can start cooking. So as soon as I finish this, I've got rid of my knife so that it's not used on anything else, and I've washed my hands thoroughly because I've been handling that raw meat. So now I will scrape the chicken off with a spoon into here, just so that I'm not then touching it again and cross-contaminating that bacteria onto something else. So first thing I'm going to do, I've got a pan which I'm going to add my rice into, and I have boiled a kettle which obviously I'm going to fill up with water, and we are going to pop that onto high to bring it to a boil, so temperature 6, and then when it starts to boil I'll turn it down to a low temperature, number 2 on my cooker, and that will bring it down to that simmer so that it doesn't overflow, the water doesn't evaporate, and then the rice ends up sticking to the bottom. So I'll come back to the rice at the end, because there are issues with bacteria with rice as well, so there are things to know about rice. Now, I've got this pan on the front here. I'm going to add a little bit of oil into there, about a tablespoon, just a big drizzle. and then we are going to add in our chicken. As I said, I'm not going to touch the chicken now. I'm just going to slide it off the chopping board and then straight away get rid of that chopping board out of the way so that that can be washed. Now that chicken is going to be on number 4 for frying, and I've also got it on the front so that I'm in control. I don't want to be reaching to the back. If you reach into the back, you're not fully in control of that pan, and that's when you could actually burn yourself. You could scald your arms. So I'm going to continue to cook this now, and what I'm going to do is add in the Thai paste, and that will really flavour the chicken and coat the chicken as it cooks. And then obviously we will add the vegetables afterwards. So a pot like this is perfect, of just about 25 grams, so just over a heaped tablespoon to pop in and fry the chicken with. So you need about a tablespoon heaped of your Thai paste if you're using it out of a larger jar. So that now I'm going to stir around with the chicken and allow that to start to fry. Obviously it will bring in all of those flavours from the paste as well. So I'll come back to you when the chicken has turned white. We want the chicken to go white because that's an indication that it's cooked on the outside. And then by the time we've added the vegetables, added in the coconut milk, the inside will be cooked thoroughly as well, and you know that the food you are eating. Now you can see that the chicken, obviously it's got a slight green tinge to it, but the chicken is now white and cooked on the outside. Obviously some of the larger pieces may still have a little bit of pink on the inside, but by the time we've added vegetables and the coconut milk, that'll be done. You can see my pan at the back now, the rice is on a full boil, so I'm going to turn that down to 2 and get that really to start to simmer as it cooks the rest of the rice through. Just stir it around just to make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom of the pan. Give it a stir and then that should settle and start to simmer. So now that all of the chicken is white, I'm going to add in spring onions, the sugar snap peas and the peppers, and we just want those to caramelise for a few minutes. So you can see the chiffonade coriander is here, and I've got a leaf of coriander obviously just for presentation on there too. We just want to lightly fry these, just stir frying them for a couple of minutes, just to soften them very slightly, to caramelise them, to release those intrinsic sugars, and then we'll be ready to add in the coconut milk. Now, depending on where you've had your coconut milk, you can sometimes open it and it's solid at the top and then liquid at the bottom, and it's separated. Tend to do that when it's a little bit colder. So if you can shake it up and you can hear lots and lots of fluid, it just means it's combined, okay? So it might be a bit warmer. If it is separated, it's fine. Just be careful because it will slosh out. You'll get a big lump followed by loads of water. So just be careful not to splash yourself with that. Obviously this one is a pull cord. I'm just going to pull that back, thumb in the centre and pull that. And you can see mine is a liquid, so mine's going to be fine to pour in. So we're just literally frying those onions just for another 30 seconds along with the peppers. The chicken will be continuing to cook, and then we can add in the coconut milk. The herbs are just going to get stirred in at the end. We just want this coconut milk just to reduce down. So we're going to allow some of it to evaporate. So reduction sauce like the ragu, we leave it on the hob on a medium heat for long enough so that the steam that is coming off evaporates, and that will thicken the sauce. You may want to put 2/3 of the coconut milk in rather than the whole can, because it is quite watery. Pop that in, and then we are going to stir that around. Allow that coconut milk to really mix with the vegetables and the chicken. And then that now will simmer for about 15 minutes, making sure that chicken is cooked through, vegetables have softened, and then we will just stir in the coriander. My rice is now done, so the grains are soft. You can squeeze them between your fingers. There's no resistance in the centre, which means that the starch has actually absorbed all the way through the rice, and it is now cooked. So I'm going to remove it from the heat, and I'm going to rinse it. I'm going to drain it, sorry, and then I'm going to rinse it. So I've just boiled the kettle with some boiling water, and that will just rinse out any of the excess starch that's on the rice. Now, if you're using the rice immediately, then that's absolutely fine. You just rinse it and then it's ready to serve. If you want to cook rice either to use cold in a rice salad or you're wanting to prepare it in advance, it is always advisable to run it under cold water until the rice goes from its current temperature right the way down through what we call the danger zone to below 5 degrees. There is a bacteria in rice that is not killed with heat, okay, so it stops multiplying, but then it just goes into a dormant state, and as it cools it will wake up and it starts to multiply again. So there is a risk of food poisoning. It's something called Bacillus cereus. So we do have to be very, very cautious with rice that you cool it right the way down so it's not in that danger zone where bacteria can multiply, and then as soon as it's in the cold you can pop it in the fridge to use as you please. Obviously reheating it, if you want to eat it cold, that's fine. If you want to reheat it, really make sure it's cooked thoroughly, to go through boiling water in a pan for a couple of minutes to refresh it, or put it in the microwave on a high heat. So I'm going to do the rice now, complete the meal, and then we are done. I'm going to drain this, just draining it through a sieve, and then I'm going to just rinse it with some boiling water and just pop it over the pan to drain. Now with the Thai curry is here. It is a slightly more watery curry naturally, that's absolutely fine, so you can reduce it down. That's why I said just be cautious with the amount of coconut milk. The longer you leave it on for, the more thick it will go, because obviously that liquid will evaporate and will leave you with that thick sauce behind. So all I'm going to do now, pinch of coriander, stirring that all the way around, combine that just for literally a couple of minutes, and that's the Thai curry finished. So I'll present that and leave a